Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ken Shono. I'm a Forestry Officer in Forest Management here in FAO headquarters. Hello. So I see some familiar faces, which is good. I'm very much new in this position. I've been here less than 2 weeks. And prior to joining this office, I was based in FAO Region Office for Asia and Pacific for more than 5 years. And I've had a chance to work quite a bit with Indian colleagues as well. So today, this morning, I'm just going to put my regional hat back on and provide an overview on forestry-related activities that we have in the Asia-Pacific region. So we really have a diverse range of activities in Asia-Pacific that are funded through projects, programs, and regular funding. And there are probably just too many to mention individually. So I will frame this presentation on the basis of the Asia-Pacific Forestry Commission, or APFC, which guides a large part of our work in the region. Maybe some of you are familiar with APFC, but this is a statutory body of FAO, and it's one of 6 regional forestry commissions that are coordinated and managed by FAO. And APFC has 34 member countries, which of course includes India, and the commission meets every 2 years. During the last session, which was a 27th session organized in Colombo in 2017, the Commission made 14 recommendations, and broadly these cover the topics of landscape restoration, climate change including REDD+, and adaptation, invasive species, urban forestry, genetic resources, community forestry, and the Global Forest Resource Assessment 2020. So these are the recommendations that were made by the Commission, which guided our work in the region for the last 2 years. And as I said, we have been working to address these recommendations. And I will just quickly go through these 14 recommendations. And this is the same report that was provided to the APFC Executive Committee meeting recently. So it's not going to be very exciting, but just please bear with me for the next 10 minutes because I think it provides a good overview of what we do in the region. So 3 of the 14 recommendations that were made by the Commission focused on landscape approaches and forest and landscape restoration. So, obviously this is one of the priorities for the region, and we have been doing quite a bit to address this recommendation. First is the Forest and Landscape Restoration Mechanism, which is a global program managed by FAO headquarters, and this is providing support to various countries globally and in Asia, including Cambodia, North Korea, and Philippines. We also have a GEF 7 project under development, which fits under the Food Systems, Land Use, and Restoration Impact Program. And in fact, we have one proposal in India as well on tribal landscape, which we are trying to, get shortlisted and further work on. We have also GEF-funded projects that are currently under implementation, which focus on landscape approaches in China, Myanmar, Philippines, Sri Lanka, and so on. And we also have the very big GEF program called the Green Ag project, which is starting implementation in India as well. We also collaborate with a lot of regional and international partners in promoting FLR, and we have a new project, global program funded by the German Climate Change Initiative, which will fund some activities in Fiji, Philippines, and also regional exchange as well. So that might include countries like India and others that are not targeted for field activities. The next recommendation focuses on climate change adaptation, and we are in the process of developing forestry sector guidance on integrating forestry into the national adaptation planning process. So that's what we're doing on the adaptation side. On the mitigation side, we are doing quite a bit. I think you will, or you've had a briefing by the REDD+ team, and this work is largely being carried out by the UNED program and the REDD+ team. We have support to the forest reference emission level work in Bangladesh, Bhutan, Laos, Mongolia, Myanmar, and so on. We also support REDD+ readiness activities under the World Bank Forest Carbon Seed Facility. We have GEF projects on CBIT, which is the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency. And we are in the process of developing a new regional program funded by Norway, and this is looking at sustainable land investment and governance in order to reduce deforestation and degradation. And also in Vietnam and other countries, we have REDD+ related capacity building as well as supporting implementing national action plans on REDD+. We also had a recommendation focusing on SIDS, the small island developing states, and these are mainly being addressed through various GEF projects in the Pacific Islands that focus on integrated natural resources management, and we have quite a few of these projects in the Pacific. And another important recommendation that was made was to increase our support for the work of the Asia Forest Invasive Species Network. And some of you may know that the Kerala Forest Research Institute was very instrumental in maintaining and running this network. We recently shifted the secretariat from KFRI to Australia, but this is something that's temporary, so the secretariat may well come back to KFRI in the future. And regardless of where the secretariat is based, KFRI remains a key partner in our work on this. And we've organized a training in China last year, and another one is being planned in June this year. We also had 2 recommendations on urban forestry, which is an emerging focus in the countries. Many countries are interested in doing work on urban forestry, and they're requesting our support. I think Michaela provided a presentation yesterday on our global work on urban forestry, so I will not repeat it, but I'll just mention that we have a small, sort of locally based activity that we are funding in Thailand, where we are supporting a community group which is working with schools and the private sector to increase awareness on the importance of urban forest and agroforestry in providing livelihood benefits and also environmental services for the city residents. Another topic that was recommended by the Commission was work on forest genetic resources, and this will be presented by my colleague later on, so I will not get into this. But in the region, we haven't been able to do so much on this topic, so this is something we need to further follow up on. And another area of work is the community-based forest management, which of course India has a lot of experience and lessons learned to offer. We've been working with through the Forest and Farm Facility, supporting smallholder farmers in Myanmar, Nepal, and in Vietnam. We also work closely with the ASEAN Working Group on Social Forestry, and we have the EU FAO FLEGT program as well, which is supporting smallholder certification and SMEs. And finally, the Commission also recommended that we provide support to the countries in implementing the Global Forest Resources Assessment, or FRA. And I'm sure ANSI will provide more details on this. So I would just say that we've been very active in providing support to countries in the region, including sub-regional training workshop conducted in Japan, India, and Thailand. And all the country reports have been submitted, including from India, and we are in the process of validating and finalizing those reports. Okay, so that's it for the recommendations, and I'll just finish with a couple of activities that we are doing, which are outside the recommendations. One is the Asia-Pacific Forest Sector Outlook Study, and this was started in January 2018. And this study, or the publication, aims to provide a clear picture of emerging opportunities and challenges for forestry in Asia and the Pacific to 2030, laying a solid foundation for long-term strategic planning by decision makers. So this is the 3rd edition of the Outlook study that's been carried out in the past. And this is a major undertaking for the region office in Asia Pacific. And the publication is being finalized now, and it will be launched in June 2019 at the Asia Pacific Forestry Week, which will be held in Korea. And finally, as you all know, next week we have the International Day of Forest, and in the region office in Bangkok, we have this tradition of hosting an annual student event, debate, which is always an interesting event, brings a lot of enthusiasm, and media attention, where we get high schools and universities based in Bangkok to come and debate on the topic of the International Day of Forest. And there's 2 sides to every topic, so teams get into a very active and interesting and engaging debate, which is always appreciated by the media, the FAO regional colleagues, and so on. So this is my last slide. As I mentioned, we're organizing the Asia Pacific Forestry Week 2019 in June in Korea, and this will be held in conjunction with the 28th session of APFC. So I hope to see, at least some of you at this event. I think the official invitations have either gone out or they're in the process of going out. So it is important that, we get high-level participation from the countries, as well as, high number of participation, hopefully from the key forestry countries such as India. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you very much. And, I didn't have time to really get into the details, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer or, refer you to colleagues who are working on specific activities in the region. Thank you very much.
Ken, this presentation is new. In the past years, we had really an overview about the thematic areas of work of the forest programs and the governance that Peter Tsoka started yesterday. But we didn't thought that this could be an interesting opportunity to see as well what FAO is doing in a given region, especially yours, a very important region. And it came out clearly of the evaluation and the number of questions you did in several thematic areas regarding the regional approach. So that's why we proposed a connection with Bangkok. And by chance, one of the 3 or 4 permanent officers of the region, there's one in the Pacific as well, has just joined by the mobility program headquarters. So instead of connecting with all the burdensome issues of connection to far away, could do it more interactively here. So this is why the reason why we incorporated this issue, and we put it just at the very end of your program so that you have had chance to see what the FAO is doing, and then you understand what is happening at the field level, especially in such a dynamic and important region in Asia Pacific. So any question from your side, please?
Good morning. Thank you for the detailed presentation about the activities, especially in Asia Pacific. I was curious to know, you mentioned about Asia Pacific Forest Sector Outlook Study 3, which is coming up. I'm just curious to know, what is your approach while preparing these studies? How do you really know what is the ground scenario and the steps involved in preparing these studies so that it is connected to the ground realities?
Okay, so maybe I can just answer this quickly. So it's based on a comprehensive review of all the data that's available, mostly based on FAO data. So, FRA data is of course being used, all of the data on FAO stat, including production data, forest cover, how forests are being managed, what are the ownership, how forests are being managed, the objectives, and so on. So, it's based on, we built a database of all the available information, that are either through FAO or other sources. So that's the first step, and we engaged experts to draft the different chapters of the Outlook study, and maybe CTS Nair, Dr. CTS Nair, he's involved as a consultant in this process, so he's one of the leading authors of this process. And we also have an executive committee or consultative group of experts that we engage to discuss the various chapters, depending on the topic. So it's been a sort of very inclusive and integrated process where we look at the factual data and try to come up with scenarios based on which we provide sort of an outlook for the forestry sector to 2030.
Sir, in your slides, you mentioned that APFC has taken some actions regarding the RED Plus program, in particularly Nepal and Cambodia. So, what is the specific challenges in the RED Plus related activities in India?
Okay, so maybe my colleague Julian, I think he would be better placed to respond to that. So.
Next presentation.
Oh, okay. So yeah, next presentation will cover that. So I think Julian can touch on that specific topic as well as specific issues in India. We did have a TCP project implemented with FSI looking at this very issue, and I think we will defer that to the later presentation. Thank you.